"I came back from war, but I don't feel at home," the young veteran said, tears in his eyes. The elderly janitor approached him slowly. "Son," he said in a gentle voice, "I heard that story 50 years ago, and I know how it ends." That lost look in the young man's eyes reminded Bill Harper of himself 50 years ago. When he returned from Vietnam in 1973, he had said those exact same words. "I don't belong at home. I don't belong anywhere." Back then, nobody understood him. But now it was different. Because Bill wasn't just a janitor. He was a man who had trained thousands of Marines at Parris Island, prepared them for war, and, most importantly, taught them the ways to come home. And he wasn't going to lose this young Marine before finishing his story. Welcome to The Last Stand. Did you also have a mentor like Bill Harper in your life who guided you through difficult times? Share your experiences in the comments below. Bill Harper had been working as a janitor at the Millfield VFW Post 247 for 3 years. This quiet 71-year-old man would arrive every morning at 6 a.m., clean the building, prepare for veteran gatherings, and quietly return home at 8 p.m. The VFW members liked him, but they knew very little about him. Never married, no close friends, just living alone in a small house. Some called him Quiet Bill, but Bill had qualities that went unnoticed. During every veteran gathering, he would stand in the back corner, listening silently. When young veterans told their stories, Bill's expression would change. It was as if he understood every word, felt every pain. His daily routine was methodical, almost military in its precision. He would check every room twice, ensure all chairs were perfectly aligned, and the American flag was properly positioned. When he mopped the floors, his movements were systematic, efficient. Old habits from a life most people knew nothing about. The way he carried himself was different too. Despite his age, his posture remained straight, his steps measured. When he spoke, which wasn't often, his words were chosen carefully, delivered with a quiet authority that seemed out of place for a janitor. But what the VFW members noticed most was how he interacted with the younger veterans. Something in his eyes would soften when they spoke about their struggles. He never offered advice unsolicited, but when they asked, his answers were always thoughtful, always seemed to come from a deep well of understanding. Michael Torres was 24 years old, a two-tour Afghanistan veteran. He had recently joined the VFW but hadn't connected with anyone yet. The other veterans were kind to him, but Michael couldn't share the growing darkness inside him with anyone. That evening, after the veteran gathering ended and everyone had left, Michael remained alone. He sat with a beer in his hand, tears in his eyes. Bill noticed him while cleaning up. "Something wrong, son?" Bill asked in his soft voice. Michael looked up. "I don't know, sir. I'm just tired." Bill set down his cleaning supplies and sat next to Michael. His movement was deliberate, purposeful. There's tired, and then there's tired. Which one is yours? Michael was surprised by the question. It wasn't what he expected from the quiet janitor. "What do you mean?" "Body tired goes away with sleep, but soul tired." Bill paused, looking directly at Michael. "That's something else entirely." The way Bill said it, with such certainty, such understanding, made Michael feel like this old man had walked the same dark roads he was walking now. From that night on, every time Michael came to the VFW, he would talk with Bill. He would keep him company while he cleaned, and they would chat. Bill didn't talk much, but he listened, really listened. Not the polite listening most people did, but the kind of listening that made you feel heard. Weeks passed. Michael began telling Bill about his experiences in Afghanistan. The IED explosions, losing friends, the difficulty of coming home, the way civilian life felt foreign and meaningless. "Sir, did you ever go to war?" Michael asked one night. Bill stopped, holding his cleaning cloth. For a moment, something flickered across his face, something deeper than the quiet janitor persona he wore. "Yes, son, a long time ago." "What was it like?" "Hard." Bill's answer was short, but the depth in his eyes told a much longer story. Michael wanted to ask more, but something in Bill's demeanor suggested this wasn't a door to push open lightly. Still, he sensed a connection, a shared understanding that went beyond words. As the days went on, Bill began sharing small pieces of wisdom. Never directly about war, never about his own experiences, but practical advice about dealing with memories, about finding purpose in small daily tasks, about the importance of routine and healing. "You know what helped me when I couldn't sleep?" Bill said one evening while emptying trash cans. "I'd clean. Sounds simple, but there's something about making order out of chaos that settles the mind." Michael started helping Bill with his cleaning duties. It was during these quiet hours, working side by side, that Michael felt most at peace. There was something comforting about Bill's presence, something stable and unshakable. But Michael's condition was worsening. He wasn't sleeping, he was having nightmares. He would disappear for days at a time, isolating himself in his apartment. Bill started calling him, started visiting his home. "Michael, listen to me. You are not alone," Bill would say, standing at his door when Michael wouldn't answer his calls. "But I am, sir. Nobody understands me. I came back from war, but I don't feel at home." It was when Michael said those exact words that Bill's face changed. He had said those same words 50 years ago, felt that same disconnect, that same profound sense of not belonging anywhere. The crisis came on a Tuesday evening. Michael arrived at the VFW for the weekly meeting, but he was different. His eyes were empty, his movements slow and disconnected. He seemed to be going through the motions of being alive without actually living. After the veteran meeting ended and the last person left, Michael still didn't move from his chair. He sat staring at the wall, lost in thoughts that were clearly pulling him deeper into a dark place. Bill finished cleaning the main room and approached Michael carefully. "Son, it's time to head home." Michael looked up, and Bill could see the depth of despair in his young eyes. "Sir, I can't take it anymore. Every night the same nightmares, every day the same emptiness. Maybe it's time for this pain to stop." Michael reached into his jacket and pulled out a handgun. Bill's training kicked in immediately. Not the janitor training, but something much older, much deeper. "Maybe I should just end it," Michael said, his voice hollow. That's when something changed in Bill Harper. The authority he hadn't used in 50 years returned. The voice, the command presence, the unshakable confidence of a man who had been responsible for other men's lives. "Marine, put that weapon down." Michael was startled. Bill's voice was completely different. Commanding, authoritative, but warm. Used to being obeyed. "Michael, look at me. You are a Marine. Marines don't surrender." "But sir, how do you know?" "Because I'm a Marine too. And Marines never leave each other behind." The room fell silent. Michael's hand holding the gun began to tremble. "For 50 years, I never told anyone, but now I have to tell you." Bill stood straighter, and for a moment, Michael could see the military bearing that had been hidden beneath the humble janitor exterior. "I am Staff Sergeant William Harper, Marine Corps Drill Instructor. Parris Island, 1965 to 1975. Michael's jaw dropped. "Drill instructor? I trained 847 young men. I made them Marines, and you, son, are one of my Marines." The weight of this revelation hit Michael like a physical force. This quiet old man who mopped floors and emptied trash cans had been responsible for turning thousands of civilians into Marines. Had shaped them, trained them, prepared them for the worst situations imaginable. "Son, when I came back from Vietnam in 1973, I felt everything you're feeling right now. Home felt foreign. Nobody understood. The future seemed impossible to imagine." Bill stepped between Michael and the door, but not in a threatening way. In a protective way. "But one day I realized something. My job wasn't just to make Marines. It was to keep them alive. All of them. Even after they left my training." "What do you mean?" "You are my responsibility right now. 50 years have passed, but you're still one of my Marines, and I have never ever lost a Marine under my command." Michael started crying. Really crying. The kind of deep sobs that come from a place of pain that's been locked away for too long. "But sir, I'm so tired. Everything feels so heavy." "I know, son. But tired is temporary. Dead is permanent." Bill sat down next to him, his voice gentle but firm. 50 years ago, I had a drill instructor too, Gunnery Sergeant Reynolds. He taught me something. Hard times are temporary, but Marines are eternal." "Really?" "Michael, look at me. In Afghanistan, you protected your brothers, didn't you?" "Yes, sir. Now it's my turn. I'm going to protect you. But first, you need to give me that weapon." The two men sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Michael handed Bill the gun. "Thank you, sir. Sergeant. You can still call me Bill, but remember, you are never alone. Never." That night changed everything. Bill didn't just talk to Michael every day after that. He shared his experiences, taught him survival strategies, showed him how to channel the discipline he'd learned in the Marines into building a civilian life worth living. The skills that made you a good Marine. Bill explained during one of their long conversations, those same skills can make you a good civilian. Discipline, loyalty, service before self. Those don't disappear just because you're not wearing a uniform anymore. Months passed. Michael started going to therapy, but his real healing came from his conversations with Bill. Bill wasn't just teaching him how to survive. He was teaching him how to live. "Sergeant, why did you never get married?" Michael asked one day. "I couldn't leave my Marines," Bill smiled. "And apparently, I made the right decision. 50 years later, one of them still needed me." As Michael improved, he began sharing Bill's true identity with other VFW members. At first, they were surprised. Then everything started making sense. "We never wondered why you understood us so well," said veteran Tom Wilson. "You were our drill instructor all along." The VFW members changed how they approached Bill. They started calling him Sergeant instead of just Bill. But more than that, they started coming to him with their problems, seeking his guidance the way Michael had. Word spread through the veteran community. The Quiet Janitor at VFW Post 247 was actually a legendary drill instructor who had trained nearly 3,000 Marines. Stories began emerging from Marines who remembered him from Parris Island. Sergeant Harper was tough but fair. Wrote one Marine in a letter to the VFW. "He saved my life by teaching me discipline and mental toughness. I never got to thank him properly." When the VFW Post 247 leadership learned Bill's full story, they decided to hold an honor ceremony. But Bill resisted. "I just did my job. I didn't want to lose a Marine." "Sergeant," said Post Commander Johnson, "you've been serving quietly for 50 years. Now it's time for recognition." The ceremony day arrived, and it wasn't just VFW members who came. The entire town showed up. Local politicians, business owners, families of veterans Bill had helped over the years. The parking lot was full, and people were standing in the aisles. Marine Corps representatives drove in from 3 different states. Gunnery Sergeant Patricia Hayes, who had served as a drill instructor herself, spoke at the ceremony. Staff Sergeant Harper, she said during her speech, "Marines like you are the backbone of our Corps. You trained 847 Marines, and now we learn that your service never ended. You've been mentoring veterans for decades, saving lives in ways that don't make headlines but matter just as much as anything that happens on a battlefield." The crowd gave him a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. Bill stood at attention, tears in his eyes, as the entire room honored him. Michael also spoke. "Sergeant Harper didn't just give me back my life. He gave me back my purpose. He is my drill instructor, my mentor, and the father I needed when I couldn't find my way." Local news coverage brought national attention. Veterans from across the country began reaching out, sharing stories about how drill instructor Harper had impacted their lives decades ago. The Marine Corps Historical Foundation created a scholarship in his name for children of Marines. The local VFW Post was renamed the Bill Harper Veterans Support Center. After the ceremony, Bill's life transformed completely. He was no longer just a janitor. The VFW created an official veteran mentorship program around him. They called it Harper's Marines, and it became a model for VFW posts across the country. Young veterans struggling with transition issues were paired with Bill and other experienced veterans who had walked similar paths. "The principle is simple," Bill explained to a reporter. "Marines take care of Marines. That doesn't end when you take off the uniform." The program grew beyond anyone's expectations. Veterans from other branches of service asked to participate. Mental health professionals began referring clients to the program. Michael became Bill's right-hand man, helping coordinate the mentorship matches and leading support groups. "Sergeant," Michael said one day, "you kept me alive. Now it's my turn to keep others alive." Bill smiled. Now that's a real Marine. The ripple effects continued. Other VFW posts started their own Harper's Marines programs. Military bases began inviting Bill to speak to troops preparing for deployment about the importance of having a support network when they returned home. "Warriors need warriors" became Bill's signature phrase. Civilians can support us, and we're grateful for that. But sometimes you need someone who's walked the same ground, faced the same darkness, and found their way back to the light. The program's success metrics were impressive. Veteran suicide rates in their region dropped significantly. More veterans were seeking mental health treatment, finding employment, and rebuilding relationships with their families. But for Bill, the numbers weren't what mattered. What mattered were the individual stories. Like Tommy, a young Army veteran who'd been homeless for 2 years until the program helped him find housing and job training. Or Sarah, a female Marine who struggled with military sexual trauma until she found a mentor who understood her unique challenges. Every veteran saved is a family saved, Bill would say. When we lose one of our own to suicide or addiction or hopelessness, we're not just losing that person. We're losing their children's father or mother, their spouse's partner, their parent's child. The program expanded to include family support services. Spouses and children of veterans were invited to participate in their own support groups, led by families who had successfully navigated the challenges of military to civilian transitions. Bill's small house became a gathering place. On Sunday afternoons, his living room would fill with veterans and their families, sharing meals and stories. It looked like chaos to outsiders, but to Bill, it looked like what a family should be. 3 years after that night, when Michael almost took his own life, the program had helped over 300 veterans. The success stories kept coming, but Bill remained humble about his role. "I'm just the old guy who opens the door," he would say. "These young veterans do the hard work of healing themselves." The Marine Corps officially recognized the program, and Bill was invited to speak at Marine Corps birthday celebrations across the country. At each event, he would share the same message. "Once a Marine, always a Marine" isn't just a slogan. It's a sacred promise. We promise to be there for each other, not just during the 20 years we might serve on active duty, but for all the decades that come after. If this powerful story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the Last Stand channel. We bring you more heroism stories every day. Bill Harper is now 74 years old, still working at what's now called the Bill Harper Veterans Support Center. But he's no longer just a janitor. He's Sergeant Bill, a man who has touched thousands of Marines' lives and never leaves any of them behind. And Michael? He now helps other young veterans himself. Because the Marine chain is never broken. Once a Marine, always a Marine. This isn't just a motto, it's a philosophy of life.